We're back for week 7, where we're going to be talking about challenges to institutional review boards. And before we get into that, I want to compliment everybody on the discussion board this week. You guys are doing a great job on that. Some good comments. We just want to make sure that everybody understands that the financial disclosure issues that we've been talking about apply to an investigator's financial stake in a sponsor, not necessarily what they get paid to conduct the trial. If the sponsors didn't pay them, they probably wouldn't get very many investigators to participate. So I just wanted to make sure that everyone understood that. So at any rate, look at some of my comments that I've made on there with some of your specific comments on the this week's discussion board. So this week we're going to be talking about institutional review boards, how they operate and how they're structured, and also we're going to be looking at some of the essential regulatory documents that sites, investigators, and sponsors are required to have on file before a site can start commencing with enrolling patients at their site. So I've stored all those in a folder, in the week 7 folder, so you'll find them in there. You'll find some examples, and if you look in the folder, you'll see that there's an explanation of each one. So I do want you to kind of take a look at those and be familiar with them. As some of you get out and start working in the industry, you're going to see a lot of those. And so it's important that you understand what they look like and the types of information that are on each one. So, but at any rate, what I do want to discuss this week is to understand that the primary function of the Institutional Review Board is to protect human subjects that participate in clinical research studies. So they have a number of obligations that they have to abide by in order to support that function. Our learning objectives of this week: we're going to identify the structure and purpose of an institutional review board. That would include what its mission is, how it operates, and also the structure of its members as far as how they're configured to comply with GCP requirements. We'll also discuss the essential documents that are required of sites and sponsors in a clinical trial. So we'll have a list of those. I'll explain what they are, and we'll put some examples out there for you to see. Your readings for this week include Monitoring Clinical Research, an article that's on page 425 in your textbook. So it's only about 3 pages. Won't take you long to take a look at that. And then also, I want you to review the Essential Documents section of ICH E6, Section 8. You can find that posted online. So I'd want you to take a look at that and become familiar with some of the documents that are included in that section. And then finally, the regulation that governs institutional review boards is 21 CFR Part 56. Posted the document online, so you'll see it out there. It's only 14 pages, but I would like for you to read through it and be familiar with with that governing document as it applies to institutional review boards. So just to introduce you briefly to institutional review boards, I want you to understand that the IRBs are central to North America. So we find them in the United States, also in Canada. Around the world, they're normally called ethics committees, but they serve the same purpose. So the regulations that we work with regarding IRBs are normally FDA regulations, and they're contained in that 21 CFR subpart 56 document that we'll go over. Some of the essential documents that we're going to talk about, you're probably wondering, well, what in the world is an essential document? It's essentially a regulatory document that's required by the regulatory authority to be collected either before the trial commences or during the trial, and actually those will be listed in that order in the ICH E6 Section 8. So let me go over these real quickly for you. FDA Form 1572, it's a 2-page form. This is the Statement of Investigator. It is a contract between the investigator and the FDA. It's not a contract between the investigator and the sponsor. It basically indicates that the investigator is going to conduct the trial based on the protocol and based on the GCP requirements, the good clinical practice requirements that we studied in week 3. And if they fail to do that, then they risk running afoul of the law to include imprisonment if their transgression is of an egregious nature. So every investigator has to sign that document before they get started with their trial. The principal investigator's curriculum vitae is just their CV that outlines where they went to medical school and all that good stuff. The investigator brochure signature page just indicates that they received the investigator brochure, they read it, they understood it, and they sign and date that and send it back to the sponsor. They're required to get their protocol approved by an IRB. The investigator is required to do that. The sponsor does not do that. And then they'll get an IRB approval letter, which lasts for 1 year. The approval lasts for 1 year, and they can conduct the research at their site according to the protocol, and it has some other stipulations in there as well. And I've put a sample of one out there on Blackboard so you can see that. The IRB also approves their informed consent form. I've also put the sample of a financial disclosure form out there. It's 1 page. It basically indicates, asks the investigator, and this is also true of others that work on the trial, to indicate whether or not they have a financial stake of any kind in the sponsor. You'll also see a copy of the principal investigator medical license. You want to know what those look like. You'll also see some CLIA and CAP certificates. These are accreditation certificates for laboratories. So I want you to take a look at those so you see what they look like as well. Every lab has to be, properly accredited that functions within a clinical trial to certify that the lab values that they present are indeed accurate. And then finally, you'll have a lab range document that will provide what the normal values, the ranges for normal values for the various labs that we'll likely collect during our trial. There's no discussion forum for this week. Instead, I want you to get started on Project 2. You'll find that listed in the Project 2 page online. So please take a look at that. We're going to be going back over the historical documents that we looked at earlier, the Declaration of Helsinki, the Belmont Report, and also the Nuremberg Code. So you'll have a couple questions to go over on that, and then you'll post that on the Project 2 page, the same as you did for Project 1 and also for your midterm exam. So if you have questions about it, please post those in the questions for the instructor section so that everyone can see them, and then that way everyone can see the answers. But I think that will be fairly self-explanatory. I don't think anyone will need any further instruction on how to complete that. So please get started on it. It'll be due next week, so you'll have a full week to complete that.